Right, stand here. Stay here.
Right,
So,
we're told, I know what's going to happen to you now, mate.
Well, I know it's going to happen
just
when we go to prison, obviously, but again.
Why, what have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
This is Damon Bendal, a brutal guy with a long, dark criminal past. By the time this body cam footage was taken, he already had over 10 years of charges and convictions behind him. Unfortunately, on his very last day of freedom, he did something so horrifying that it made him one of the most hated criminals in all of Britain, and yeah, he got the harshest sentence the British law could possibly give. So in this video, we're going to talk about the tragic life of Damon Bendal, the lives he took, and all those mistakes and warning signs that, everyone just ignored on the way to this terrible tragedy. Hey guys, what's up? I'm so glad to see you back on my channel. We're going to take, just a few seconds to pause this video because I want to ask you something real quick. How often do you actually go to the dentist? And do you get nervous before your appointments? Let me know down in the comments. I'd honestly love to read what you guys think. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, okay? Alright then, let's get started. So, today's story takes us all the way to Derbyshire County. In the northeastern part of this historic region sits a little village called Killermarsh, and sadly, its name turned out to be a pretty grim reflection of what would one day happen there. Killermarsh covers just a bit over 2 square miles. It's a small, peaceful place with fewer than 10,000 people, surrounded by open fields and quiet lakes. The village itself has deep roots. The first mention of it goes all the way back to the year 1086. Like most settlements in this area, Killermarsh's economy originally relied on farming, until, in the 15th century, coal mining took over. For centuries, mining kept the town alive and growing. But by the 1980s, that era came to an end when most of Britain's coal mines began shutting down. Today, near one of those old mines, there's this beautiful country park called Rother Valley. 740 acres of scenic trails where people can walk, relax, or just take in the nature around them. And if you're more into chill city-style recreation, there are these gorgeous canals that run right through Killermarsh, perfect for walking or biking along the water. Mountain trail lovers totally know this spot. There are tons of routes here, from easy to challenging ones. And up until recently, that's what Killermarsh was best known for. But then, everything changed in September of 2021. At 7:26 in the morning on Sunday, September 19th, 2021, emergency services got a call from a man named Damon Bendal. The conversation was short, and his message shockingly direct. Here's what he said.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that, because I've killed 4 people.
Okay, just hold the line. Bear with me.
Killermarsh is a small village, so officers got to the scene in just about 14 minutes. When they arrived, they found a calm but kinda disheveled man standing there in a coat. That man was Damon Bendal, the very same guy who had just called the police himself.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Alright, come to me.
Right,
Mate, have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have?
no, there's no weapons or nothing.
Right.
do you just want to undo your coat? Have you armed yourself?
Yeah.
You have?
Have you stabbed yourself, mate?
I can see blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
Just my chest, 4 inches in with a bread knife.
Can we have a look?
And 1 on the stomach. I bled quite.
Alright, do you want to
I bled quite a lot.
yeah.
Can we go down
No, just stay there.
I just don't want to be in front of everyone.
Alright.
The officers quickly realized Damon wasn't lying. He really had killed 4 people inside the house right behind him, and he even had a few injuries of his own to prove it. After confessing to what he'd done, Damon Bendal was handcuffed. Backup was called in, and the team got ready to search the house. What they found inside was absolutely horrifying. The bodies of 35-year-old Terry Harris and 3 children. Tragically, all 4 were pronounced dead at the scene. Terry was found in the living room, 13-year-old John Paul Bennett in the bathroom, and Lacey Bennett, along with her friend Connie Gent, in a bedroom. Lacey and Connie were only 11 years old. There was blood everywhere. In the kitchen, officers found a hammer and a bread knife. And yeah, as you'd expect, after that discovery, Damon was immediately placed under arrest.
Damien, it's 07:47 hours. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention when questioned something later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Your arrest is necessary to protect you from harm, to prevent your disappearance, for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay? I'm going to get you up, we're going to put you in the back of the van. Stand up.
This whole thing absolutely shocked the entire Killermarsh community. I mean, this little village had never dealt with even one murder before, and now, suddenly, there were 4. Because of the family's unique situation, the tragedy hit so many people on a personal level. None of the kids were actually related to Damon by blood, and he had only met Terry Harris a few months before it all happened. As for Connie Gent, she wasn't related to anyone in the house at all. She was just staying over for a sleepover with her best friend. It was a tragedy no one could have seen coming. But, as they say, the devil's in the details, and as you're about to see, there were so many warning signs leading up to this horror that people just completely ignored. Sadly, Damon did something even worse than murder. It later came out that he had assaulted 11-year-old Lacey while she was still alive, and then came back to her again after she'd already passed. That's what made this case one of the most disturbing and horrific crimes in modern British history. But before we get deeper into what Damon did that night, it's important to understand how he ended up in these people's lives in the first place. And to do that, we need to start with the story of Terry Harris and her kids. Terry Harris was described as caring, loving, and just genuinely gentle. She was born in London to Angela Smith and Lawrence Harris. She grew up in the eastern part of the city, a true city girl at heart, but when she was 17, she and her mum moved to Sheffield. Around that same time, her dad relocated to Essex, which meant Terry's world was split between 2 homes nearly 200 miles apart. It was in Sheffield where Terry caught the eye of a man named Jason Bennett. A few years later, the two had 2 amazing kids together, John Paul and Lacey Bennett. Lacey was known as this sweet, bubbly little girl who loved performing. She adored making fun TikTok videos with her friends and took dance classes at school. Her older brother, John Paul, was quiet, kind, and totally devoted to his family. Both of them went to Outwood Academy City, where they were popular among classmates and did really well in school. Terry absolutely adored her kids. She poured everything she had into raising them, always trying to be the best mum she could be, and honestly, she really was. Her kindness and patience came naturally, especially since she worked as a caregiver, a job that demands empathy, compassion, and a genuine love for people. The kids' dad, Jason, was a great dad too, but sadly, after 15 years together, the couple ended up getting divorced. Like with a lot of breakups, there was pain and sadness, but both parents did everything they could to make sure their kids stayed happy. Jason kept in touch with them every single day, and Terry had another love in her life, the football club West Ham United. Even though she loved her kids, Terry felt that same emptiness a lot of single adults feel. She didn't just want to care for someone, she wanted someone to care for her. So, in 2020, she decided to try finding a new love and signed up on a popular dating app, a totally normal way to meet someone these days. Unfortunately, that's where she met a man named Damon Bendel. And, as you've probably guessed by now, Terry was the kind of person most people would call good. She was a normal young mum who adored her kids and just wanted to be loved in return. But Damon, he turned out to be her complete opposite. After a few conversations, they started a relationship. At that time, Terry was living in the Woodhouse area of Sheffield, but in early 2021, she moved with her kids and Damon Bendel to Chandos Crescent in Killamarsh. So who was this Damon guy? He was born in 1989 in Swindon, and sadly, from a young age, his life was already on a path of self-destruction. For reasons that make absolutely no sense to a normal person, he became obsessed with building a reputation as a dangerous guy in his neighborhood. But honestly, it was all just a show. From a young age, he got involved in petty crime and other criminal activity. And once he started down that path, things just kept escalating like a snowball rolling downhill. People who knew him as a teenager later said Damon's main goal was to look dangerous, not actually be dangerous. His attempts at cage fighting, in which he, by the way, lost pretty much every time, were just a way to keep up that fake image. On his fingers, he had a tattoo that read, "True Blue," the motto of the famous London football club Chelsea. But despite this supposed loyalty to the team, he had never actually been to one of their matches in person. It's also known that he had tattoos on his legs with swastikas and other Nazi symbols. But honestly, people figured he couldn't tell you anything about the Third Reich or its ideology. In other words, he was just a thug chasing attention. On top of all that, Damon often bragged about supposedly killing a friend's dog. When his friend couldn't afford to put the animal down, Damon supposedly said, "I'll do it for free," with a brick. Maybe it was just a made-up story to seem cool, But the disturbing part? A few people from Swindon claimed it actually happened. Even worse, he took pleasure in tormenting kittens. I've said it in my videos before, cruelty to animals is one of the biggest warning signs of a future killer. Damon also self-diagnosed himself with multiple personality disorder, admitted he could lose his temper easily, and even claimed he had his own 3-strike system. If someone crossed him 3 times, they were in big trouble. As you can probably guess, he had serious issues with alcohol and drugs for a long time. Damon had zero control over his habits, actions, or behavior, which meant he was constantly in trouble with the police. He'd been charged with attempted robbery, armed assault, robbery, carrying a knife, causing grievous bodily harm, and assault. One notable incident happened in 2015 when he tried to rob a local shop with a knife in his hand. But, as usual, all that bravado was just for show. When the elderly shop owner chased him down with a golf club, Damon ran off. And here's the thing, despite all this violent history, Terry had no idea about any of it at first. All of it was hidden behind the mask he wore online. We all know the internet is full of liars, narcissists, and even killers who create this illusion that they're good, happy, and successful people. It's super obvious on social media, but it's even more dangerous on dating apps, where people can get close to each other really fast. Damon seemed like a caring, attentive, and all-around nice guy. But in reality, he was a worthless man with a violent past. And, sadly, he managed to worm his way into Terry's trust. Only a few months into their relationship, Terry's friends started sounding the alarm. Rumors about Damon's criminal history and previous convictions began reaching the family. Terry's mom was extremely worried. She repeatedly begged her daughter to reconsider her relationship with him, feeling deep down that this man was dangerous and that things could end badly. Sadly, her maternal instinct was right, but Terry believed she could change Damon for the better. She was kind, gentle, and compassionate, the kind of woman who always tried to see the best in people. Even though she knew he had a dark side, she sincerely thought that all he needed was a stable, loving environment to turn things around. Unfortunately, in September 2020, just 5 months after meeting him, Terry moved to Killamarsh and let Damon move in with her and the kids. Swindon, her new life in Sheffield, and the village of Killamarsh were over 200 miles apart. Moving that far for someone you just met on Tinder? Yeah, that's a risky move on its own. And as this story shows, it turned out to be fatal. Moving from Swindon to the tiny village of Killamarsh, hundreds of miles from Damon's hometown, should have raised red flags for anyone. But for Terry, it felt like a chance at a fresh start. What's more, she was pregnant, and maybe she believed that having a baby would change Damon, turn him into the caring father he always pretended to be. But his drug addiction didn't go away. Even behind bars, he kept using former cellmates recalled that Damon was often high and barely in control of himself. Spice synthetic cannabis that literally destroys a person from the inside. In Britain, it's become a full-blown epidemic. After his release, Damon moved into Terry's house in Killamarsh. At that time, he was still on probation for arson and had strict conditions. He had to check in with his officer weekly, wear an electronic tag, and stay home during certain hours. But what's even more shocking, he was allowed to live in a house that already had 2 kids in it. 2 kids he had no relation to whatsoever. Considering his violent past, it was, well, beyond reckless. And sadly, the system didn't learn anything from it. His arson, like most of his crimes, happened while he was under the influence of drugs. For several years leading up to 2021, he was addicted to cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamine, morphine, and that same synthetic cannabis, Spice. Even though Damon told everyone he had quit, that was a lie, and the truth would reveal itself in the most horrific way. September 18th, 2021. A Saturday. A normal weekend for the Harris Bendel family. Everyone was home. Lacey had a friend over Connie Gent. The girls were super excited. They had decided to raise money for cancer research, baking cupcakes, and other treats to sell in the park. No one had any idea that the photos taken that day would be the last pictures of the girls alive. That night, everything changed. Damon, who had drunk the last of the alcohol and smoked all of the weed, went further, taking 3 or 4 bags of cocaine. Then he tried to contact his dealer to get more, but couldn't, and that's when he completely lost touch with reality. According to his phone data, what happened next lasted around 18 minutes. Damon grabbed a sledgehammer and first attacked Terry in the living room. He killed her on the spot, along with her unborn baby. Then he went upstairs, where he found John Paul in the bathroom and killed him too. Next was Connie. And finally, Lacey. Forensic experts found that, before she died, the girl wasn't just beaten. She suffered terrible sexual violence, not once, but repeatedly throughout the night. The most repulsive detail is that Damon set up a mirror in the room so he could watch himself while he did it. At 6 in the morning, the horror stopped. The next morning, he took John Paul's Xbox and walked out of the house, hoping to sell the console to buy more drugs. Phone records show he tried to contact his dealer again at that time. Then he booked a taxi, waited for the driver, and headed toward the dealer. When the taxi driver asked how the night had been, Damon answered calmly, "Oh, it was fine. A bit crazy." CCTV caught him walking the streets of Sheffield with the Xbox in his hands, acting like nothing had happened. Not long after, he returned home. Back at the house on Chandos Crescent, Damon phoned his mother and then went into the local shop. CCTV inside shows him buying a pack of cigarettes with his hands covered in blood. When he came back, he made a weak attempt to take his own life with a bread knife and then dialed 999. During the call to emergency services, in a calm, almost indifferent voice, he said, "The whole house is covered in blood. I used a hammer. Obviously I'm going to jail because I've killed 4 people. I'll bet Killermarsh doesn't get 4 murders at once very often, huh?" Shortly after that, the police forced their way into the house. And as awful as it is to say, the story gets even more disgusting. Damon didn't try to hide the truth. On the contrary, he willingly and without any remorse confessed to killing the whole family. When officers asked about the pregnant Terry, he smiled and, as if it were nothing, joked, "So I killed 4? Or maybe 5 if you count the baby?" 6 days later, on September 24th, 2021, Damon appeared in the Crown Court in Derby for the first time. And 15 months after that, on December 21st, 2022, a jury found him guilty on 4 counts of murder and 1 count of sexual assault. The sentence? Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. That means he will never get out. In the UK, that kind of sentence is extremely rare. It's only handed down to people considered completely irredeemable, those who can't be rehabilitated. And while most ordinary citizens might see it as totally fair, lawyers often try to appeal it. But the biggest shock came during the post-trial investigation. The inspection uncovered 51 separate probation system failures, each of which directly or indirectly allowed Damon to remain free and move into Terry's house with her children. There had also been prior complaints about him, including inappropriate behaviour with a 16-year-old in a foster family, but this information was recorded incorrectly and ignored during risk assessment. Even more alarming, Damon, who was supposed to wear an electronic tag, openly said he would kill his partner and her children if the relationship went wrong and probation took no action. The probation officer responsible for supervising him chose not to report it. If the information had come to light, Damon would almost certainly have been banned from living at that address. Another major factor was a misclassification of his risk level marked medium instead of the actual high. Had the risk assessment been done correctly, his suspended sentence for the May 2020 assault would likely have been replaced with imprisonment. That would have prevented him from meeting Terry and possibly avoided this tragedy. The probation officers who made these mistakes admitted they were overwhelmed with work and facing severe staff shortages. During the investigation, they explained that the absence of experienced colleagues during the COVID-19 pandemic created major difficulties. Even more shocking was their admission that they reviewed only 2 out of 10 available reports on Damon. As a result, one of the officers involved lost their job for gross misconduct. And while the true victims of this case were Terry, John Paul, Lacey, and Connie, the people who suffered the most were their families. Terry's parents, Angela and Lawrence, made an emotional statement when the investigation results were released. In their letter, they wrote, "The probation service failed to protect and safeguard our family. They're gone. This should never happen again. For many years, they failed to protect women and children who were at risk from violent men with a history of domestic abuse." The senior coroner also criticized the probation service's weak attempts to blame COVID-19. In his statement, he said, "This does not explain the scale of all the actions, inactions, and failures of the probation service in monitoring Damien Bendel. and making the appropriate decisions. The probation service admitted that failures occurred at every stage of the process and promised to review and reform its deeply broken system. Additionally, it was allocated extra funding, £5 million per year, on the condition that it strengthens its infrastructure and improves officer training. But unfortunately, as we all know, these steps came far too late for the 4 who were lost. And while their deaths may help prevent other tragedies in the future, none of this should ever have happened in the first place. Terry Harris was laid to rest on October 21st, 2021, following a service at Street Carl's Parish Church. 2 white horses slowly pulled her coffin, adorned with the colours of her favourite club, West Ham United. Family and friends remembered Terry as a kind woman with a warm smile, a devoted mother, and a caring social worker who always helped those in need. The lives of John Paul, Lacey Bennett, and Connie Gent were tragically cut short. Their deaths are especially heartbreaking because with them went their dreams, their futures, everything that could have been. It's especially hard to come to terms with Connie's death, as she had only come over for a sleepover at her friend's house. And even more painful is realizing the horror Lacey endured in her final moments. Each of them was robbed of a future by the hand of a worthless coward, a career criminal and drug addict who, with no control over his own life, committed his final, deadly act, taking the lives of 4 innocent people. Damien Bendall. He was a plastic gangster, a self-obsessed, wannabe tough guy, and an absolutely worthless human being. This so-called man spent his entire life trying to make himself seem important, but he never succeeded. Instead, he replaced real substance with hollow attempts to look tough and dangerous. Even just mentioning his name is an insult to the memory of those he murdered. He achieved nothing in his dirty, pathetic life, and, thankfully, he will never see the light of day again. Instead, our focus should be on the lives he took and on the changes that were put in place to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again. Sure, procedural reforms, funding reallocations, or firing officials won't bring the victims back, but they still symbolize a step in the right direction. After their deaths, neighbors put up a memorial plaque on a tree near the family's home. It read, "Where angels sang and played. Fly high, little ones." No one wanted to move into a house where so much blood had been spilled, so they decided to permanently board up the windows and doors. Neighbors in the adjoining home, sharing a wall with the cursed house, also couldn't stay. They requested to be relocated. After they moved out, the Sheffield City Council decided to completely demolish the house. Now, that spot is part of the nearby park. All that remains is an empty lot, a grim reminder of the horrors that happened there. But in time, grass and flowers will grow again where that house once stood. Anyway, friends, this case is just insanely upsetting, and as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. For me personally, it's just unbelievable how horrific this man truly was. On that note, I'm wrapping up today's video. Please drop your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and of course, stay safe. Thanks, and goodbye.